ध्वनिर्वर्णा पदं वाक्यमित्यास्पद चतुष्टयम् यस्याः सूक्ष्मादि भेदे वाग्देवीं तामुपास्महे।
The Electronic Media Production and Research Center, EMPRC, of Madhya Pradesh Bhoj Open University presents an audio program on visual impairment. This audio program will be useful to the students of B.Ed Special Education Program. The title of the audio program is Transitioning Students with Visual Impairment Using Strength-Based Planning. To deliver the lecture on this topic, we have invited our subject expert, Dr. Nora Griffing Shirley. She is a professor in the program of special education at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, in the United States of America. This audio program recorded, edited, and presented by Amar Bahadur Yadav. Let's listen to the first part of the audio program, Transitioning Students with Visual Impairment Using Strength-Based Planning.
Hello, students. I am a professor in the Special Education Program in the Department of Educational Psychology and Leadership of the College of Education at Texas Tech University at Lubbock, Texas, in the United States of America. In addition, I also coordinate the Orientation and Mobility Specialist Program, teach in the Teacher of Students with Visual Impairments, and also in the Generic Special Education Program. I am the director of the Virginia Murray South Center for Research and Education in Visual Impairment. I have been teaching in a university system for over 20 years. I would like to thank Bhoj Open University for this opportunity to speak to you today on transitioning students with visual impairments using strength-based planning. I would like to express my appreciation to Mr. Eric S. Grummett, a doctoral student from Texas Tech University of the United States, and Dr. Derek Smith, who is an assistant professor at the University of Alabama, also from the United States, who were co-authors of a chapter on this topic in a book titled Strength-Based Planning for Transitioning Students with Sensory Disabilities. The authors of this book are myself, Doctors Rosanna Davidson, Michael Shaughnessy, Effie Lehman, and Deanne Lechtenberger, all from the United States of America. The objectives for today's lecture are 1. To articulate the current practice of strength-based transition planning for students with visual impairments. 2. To identify issues when using strength-based transition planning for students with visual impairments and possible solutions to these issues. We do have some definitions for today's lecture. Let's go through them. Number 1, transition. Transition is a coordinated set of activities for students with disabilities to assist these students as they move from school to adult life. 2. Strength-based planning. This is a planning process which is identifying and focusing on the strengths of a student with visual impairment, where interventions are developed and solutions to barriers are created. Number 3, the wraparound process. The wraparound process, the characteristics of this process specifically include a family-centered team. It is also individualized based on the student, his family, and their culture. It is also needs-driven rather than service-driven. Number 4, and this is the last word, vocational rehabilitation counselors. They serve as vocational agency counselors and, when needed, can provide therapy. The development of the individual is marked by a number of important transitions, each reflecting a specific life event that leads into the next stage of the lifespan. Often, these transitions occur without warning, and little preparation can be made in anticipation of these life changes. Transition events progress steadily from birth to adulthood to the final days of life, but those transitions that occur in childhood are perhaps the most important and often determine the future direction of the individual. Transitions from being at home as a toddler to school and then to adulthood can be difficult. This is especially true when we look at the transition of students with visual impairments to adult life. To facilitate a smooth and successful transition, a strength-based planning model can be used. The definition of strength-based planning is identifying and focusing on the strengths of a student with visual impairment, where interventions are developed and solutions to barriers are created. Families are at the heart of this process, leading to a wraparound process. The characteristics of this wraparound process includes a family-centered team. It is individualized based on the students, his family, and their culture, and it is needs-driven rather than service-driven. As defined by Epstein, Rudolph, and Epstein in using strength-based assessment in transition planning, the basic premise of strength-based planning requires the transitions that are centered on the strengths of the student and incorporate the resources of the individual, the family, and the local community. Collaboration between the various support systems is a key component to the future success of the individual, whether in higher education, employment, or adult rehabilitation services. These guidelines have been used in transitioning students with visual impairments for quite some time. The research in transitioning students with visual impairment reveals the common use of strength-based decision-making in this process. What are current practices for students with visual impairments in the United States? The National Agenda for the Education of Children and Youth with Visual Impairments, including those with multiple disabilities, Goal 9, states, transition services will address developmental and education needs, birth through high school, to assist students and their families in setting goals and implementing strategies through the life continuum commensurate with the student's aptitudes, interests, and abilities. For young adults with visual impairments, transition from high school to adult life may require an array of disability-specific services such as compensatory skills for completing activities of daily living, orientation and mobility, use of assistive technology, social skills, and career exploration and employability skills. These skills should be taught in the natural environment and with real-life objects to facilitate generalizability and transferability. Pierre, Gello, and Gilani, in Transition Services in Special Education, stress an interdisciplinary approach when developing educational programming, highlighting self-care skills and daily living skills. Activities of daily living include everything from personal care to maintaining a household. The preferred location of teaching activities of daily living is in the student's natural home environment, whether in students' homes or in an apartment-like setting. Some adaptations for completion of these skills include labeling appliances and food items, use of a computer with a voice synthesis program for managing a student's finances, and developing an organization system for household item storage. Students who become adept at these skills need to be more employable. Transportation is a major barrier for independent living and employment opportunities. Students with visual impairments, along with their orientation and mobility specialist, and the other members of their education and rehabilitation teams, can explore viable transportation options. Public transportation, sharing rides, taxis, and walking are just a few ways people can travel to a workplace. Moving to a location close to work and public transportation has always been an option for some individuals. Effective communication and social skills are crucial for the employability of young adults with visual impairments. These skills include expressive and receptive communication, reading and writing, calculating, speaking, and listening. To accomplish these skills, students with visual impairments may use Braille, a talking calculator, an augmentative communication device, and requesting information from a sighted person about what has transpired in a meeting. Here is a case study to illustrate what we have just been talking about. Robin, a 20-year-old, has cortical visual impairment, cerebral palsy, and a cognitive deficit. She uses a walker and has intelligible speech. Currently, she is working with her teacher of students with visual impairments on how to sign her name using a signature guide. Robin's parents and her rehabilitation counselor suggested this goal be worked on during the current school year. Robin is pleased with her progress and likes to sign her name whenever possible. Learning self-determination and self-advocacy skills are also instructional areas for students with visual impairments as they enter adulthood. Support groups and consumer organizations can provide instructions and opportunity for the practice of these skills. Students with visual impairments do not have the same access to incidental learning about the world of work and career opportunities as sighted children. Therefore, teachers of students with visual impairments must expose these students to the wide variety of occupations that exist. Providing opportunities to job shadow individuals with visual impairments in different occupations and seeking paid and unpaid employment opportunities for students while in school are valuable career education activities for students with visual impairments. Here is another case study to illustrate what we have just discussed. Kashida, a 14-year-old, has congenital glaucoma and is gifted. She is very excited because she is going to spend the day with Roshni, a lawyer who is totally blind. In conversations with her teacher of students with visual impairments, Kashida expressed her desire to become a lawyer, but it became evident Kashida did not know the types of laws that are available to lawyers to practice. Therefore, Kashida's teacher arranged for Kashida and Roshni to meet. Kashida will write a 2-page paper on what she learned from her job shadowing experience with Roshni to present to her class. Career and vocational assessment materials must be in an accessible media for students with visual impairments. If standardized assessment tools cannot be utilized, then an ecological assessment should be completed. Wolf in a parent-professional collaboration model of transition planning has included a sample checklist and interview protocols to assist with an ecological assessment. Another important component of career education is teaching problem-solving skills and fostering interdependence. All educational and rehabilitation professionals and parents can teach and reinforce these skills. The ability to have an alternative means of accomplishing daily living skills and work tasks can enable students to maintain their employment. In a model of successful work experience for employees who are visually impaired, the results of a study, Gottlieb developed a model of successful employment for people with visual impairments that describes the steps employees need to take to be considered a valued worker. These steps are: number 1, make others comfortable with their visual impairment. Number 2, be current with their blindness competencies such as orientation and mobility, braille, and assistive technology. 3, be an ambassador for all people with blindness. 4, have a positive attitude at work while not using their blindness as a crutch. 5, have a strong work ethic. 6, insist on being held to the same work standards as sighted employees. 7, move to mutual accommodation where everyone is interested in valuing differences and getting the work task completed with respect for one another. Integration of these steps into a career education curriculum is critical for a student with a visual impairment. People with visual impairments use a wide variety of assistive technology to complete activities of daily living and job tasks on a daily basis. Technology can range from simple, inexpensive tools like a long white cane, braille labels, sunglasses, visors, magnifiers, and telescopes, to complex, expensive devices such as electronic travel devices, global positioning systems, and computers with braille output. To increase employability, potential students must master the use of assistive technology and keep abreast of new technology. Wolf in a parent-professional collaboration model of transition planning characterizes students with visual impairments into 3 levels based on their need: an informational level, an instructional level, and an advocacy level. Young adults classified as being at the informational level are able to generalize what they learn at school to adult life with minimal intervention from school staff and others. Most students with or without disabilities are at the instructional level. They require instruction from teachers and others like their parents to help them generalize what they have learned in school to adult life. Students at the advocacy level need intervention and support from teachers and others to be integrated into community living as adults. Generally, students with visual impairments with an additional disability are going to be at the instructional or advocacy level. Students with severe disabilities are definitely at the advocacy level. One viable workplace for students with visual impairments and cognitive deficit is a sheltered work setting where they employ people with varying ability levels. For some individuals, it is an entry-level job where they master the skills necessary to locate competitive employment. Not everyone who receives educational services as a student with visual impairment will be eligible for, need, or desire vocational rehabilitation services. To receive these rehabilitation services in the United States, individuals must be legally blind, have limitations in activities of daily living, and desire to work. Legal blindness is defined as, with best correction, a visual acuity of 20/200 or a visual field of 20 degrees or less. A transition planning model developed by Rumrill and Loft in Life Beyond the Classroom, Transitioning Strategies for Young People with Disabilities, they advocate for person-centered planning, implementing a 7-step approach. These steps are: 1. Organize educational and vocational planning teams for all transition-age students. These teams would include parents, the student with the disability, classroom teachers, possible pediatricians, physical therapist, the medical doctor, occupational therapist, teacher of students with visual impairments, the orientation and mobility specialist. 2. Organize the circle of people, including students, who can craft visions of successful transition. This circle of people might include a minister, a priest, the children's friends, the parents' friends, obviously the parent, and the key individual is the student with the visual impairment. 3. Identify the key activities needed to create these visions. 4. Hold an initial transition planning meeting as part of the annual Individualized Education Program meeting. Implement a transition plan through secondary school and adult service providers. Update this transition plan annually. 7. Hold an exit meeting when the student is preparing from or otherwise leaving school. Areas to be considered in the transition process include employment, vocation education and training, post-secondary education, financial and income needs, independent living, transportation and mobility, social relationships, recreation and leisure, health and safety, and self-advocacy and future planning. To facilitate effective transition programs for students with visual impairments, it is important for collaboration to occur between education and rehabilitation team members, community agencies, and prospective employers. This is especially crucial for planning and implementing transition programs for young adults with visual impairments and those with additional disabilities. Dietmar, Thurston, and Dick in Consultation, Collaboration, Teamwork for Students with Special Needs state professionals must be attuned to factors that facilitate collaboration and then work towards skillful application of the best consultative and collaborative practices. They also suggest that interagency collaboration must account for informed consent issues, turf concern, and the usual way of operating procedures. According to Wittenstein article, A Parent-Professional Collaboration Model of Transition Planning, a transition model for these students should focus on the collaborative relationship between parents and professionals. This model consisted of a community-based functional curriculum, a family needs assessment questionnaire, parent-professional teams, and individual transition plans, technical assistance concerning the unique needs of this population, and the development of a transition model for school and parents. According to Hutto and Thompson, in counseling college students with visual impairments in preparation for employment, they discuss the need for vocational rehabilitation counselors and college students with visual impairments to use an employment counseling model to assist the students to become ready to seek employment upon graduation. This collaborative model focused on the counselor and the student developing an individualized plan highlighting the career development skills needed for the student to be successful in college and with his job search. The initial step is an interview where the student and his counselor explore the career needs of the student, after which a skills development plan is developed and implemented. Communication skills, body language, knowledge of laws protecting people with disabilities, accommodations needed to complete job tasks, performance during mock job interviews were some of the aspects addressed by this particular model. 3 different categories of students were described. The categories range from those students who possess knowledge of the behaviors and skills required to graduate from college and find employment to those who did not have this knowledge. The authors suggested that vocational counselors and career and placement service professionals collaborate to implement this model when the students are enrolled in school. In summary, the transition of students from school to adult life is a complex process. Unemployment among individuals with visual impairments is still high, over 60% of blind people in the United States and 56% who are visually impaired. Reasons for this high unemployment rate are employer attitudes, transportation and mobility issues, print access, or rather lack of it, lack of job opportunities, and lack of accessible equipment and accommodations. For transition to be successful, interagency collaboration must occur. Instruction in compensatory skills, family involvement, assistive technology, communication and social skills, career education and employability skills, housing, transportation, orientation and mobility skills, and vocation training are areas that must be addressed. Strength-based assessment and planning is a model used in transition planning. This model has not been extensively researched in the field of education and rehabilitation of individuals with visual impairments, but it has been used very often. Research needs to be conducted to determine its efficacy when using this model for young adults with visual impairments as they transition to the community. Thank you.
You were listening to the first part of an audio program, Students with Visual Impairment Using Strength-Based Planning. Subject expert and speaker was Dr. Nora Griffin Shirley. The announcer was Vinita Bhatnagar. This audio program was recorded, edited and presented by Amar Yadav. This program was produced by the Electronic Media Production and Research Center, EMPRC, of Madhya Pradesh Bhoj Open University.